No, only 104 to 106 all week. So snow. I'm like, oh, snow. So how many of you have gotten snow already?
No.
Just Stuart?
Sunshine and blue skies.
Yeah.
In Yorkshire.
We got a bit of storms.
Ace Man got more than we did, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And ladies and gentlemen, we are live. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the John Lavenia Success Mastermind for Wednesday, September 23rd. I'm your host, Glen Henderson. So glad you could join us today. So many guests on the line. We are happy to see you. Welcome. And there's new faces and familiar. Bill and Ego, Caroline, Joe and Gina, Al and Beatty, Gail, Wayne. So good to see you, Dave, Debbie, Ivier, who, for the record, is still awake. Elmer, Lindsay, Dalla, could there be a more appropriate name for an entrepreneur? Janet, Daisy, the Llama King, Stuart Wilde, and we are so glad to have all of you with us. And in fact, my traditional salute is exquisitely appropriate today, as we will soon see. Let's get right into it, because this is going to be one of those topics I am sure that on which a number of us are going to want to weigh in. Oh, before I move along any further, we must pause and genuflect, as it were, give proper respect to our fearless leader, the master behind the mastermind, the Godzilla of personal growth, Mr. John Lavenia himself. John, good to see you, my friend. Thank you for creating this space for all of us to get together and be together and support one another in our journey toward success. A little housekeeping we have coming immediately following this session is our hospitality suite. That is an unmoderated Zoom room where you can come and share and hang out and chat and talk about whatever is in and on your mind. As a matter of fact, we had a very, very exciting and interesting chat a few days ago there with some friends, so I can testify personally that the hospitality suite is the place to be. Yeah, life and business tools at 6 p.m. Eastern time this evening with Adrian and Ego. You're not going to want to miss that. I know that they're going to be moderating a very lively discussion this evening. You're going to be taking questions from the floor, aren't you? Yeah, I know this was something you were talking about before, so you will come at 6 Eastern with your armed with your questions, and then, yes, you get to put up with me again tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, networking magic with me, your humble and obedient servant, Glen Henderson. We're going to be talking about ways to build your contact list and build your business using the power of networking. Right now, I get to talk with you about one of my absolute favorite topics in the entire galaxy. Yes, you did not hear that wrong. I did say one of my favorite topics in the entire galaxy. Why do I say galaxy? Many of you know that I am good at a couple of things that I've been practicing and living with over the years of my so far short but fairly interesting life. One of the things that I'm pretty good at is singing. The other thing that about which I know something, as you might imagine, is Star Trek. I have been a Star Trek fan since the premiere, since the national holiday. You know the national holiday, September 8th, 1966, when the Star Trek television series premiered on the NBC network here in the United States. I believe it was a Friday, and I was there. I remember skinning my knees, sliding across the dining room floor, coming to a stop directly in front of the great big console black and white TV in our dining room to watch the very first episode of Star Trek. And I'll tell you, I haven't missed one yet. Jane, Neil, you talk about tribbles. You want to know something funny, or what you may find interesting. I'll just tell you, you'll decide if it's funny. I am actually in the process of writing a book. Yes, I am. I dare presume that I have something to share and to say that somebody on this beautiful green planet of ours might want to listen to or read about. Would you like to know the name of my book? The book, it's coming out, and it should be ready for publication sometime between now and the end of the year. The book is called, and you may want to write this down. No, well, yeah, please write this down. All I need to know about network marketing, I learned from Star Trek. And that, my dear guests, is the name of the book. I am so excited about it. And as a matter of fact, Paula and I are going to be going off the grid for a few days. We're going to make camp in the beautiful state of South Dakota, where I'm going to look up at the stars and grill some steaks and perhaps smoke a cigar and drink a bourbon. And I'm going to finish writing the book, and then it'll be ready by the end of the year. I say all this, share all this with you simply to let you know that I come by my interest in Star Trek honorably. I'm going to show you a couple of my own most treasured personal possessions, and they are these. I'm going to share my screen with you. Let's see. Oh, well, maybe I won't. For some reason it's there. Yeah, it's I love technology. As a matter of fact, technology is a wonderful thing when it works. Matter of fact, I'll show you what they are. Don't go anywhere. I'm right here. So I have two photographs. This one, as you might be able to recognize, is of William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy, otherwise known in the Star Trek universe as Captain James T. Kirk, and his first officer, Lieutenant Commander, later Captain, later Ambassador Spock. How in the heck do I know all these ranks? I told you. I know Star Trek. Now you'll notice it's a fabulous picture. You notice the autographs. Tell you where we got this. Paula and I invested, were among the investors in a film produced several years ago by the son of Leonard Nimoy, Adam Nimoy. The film is called For the Love of Spock. It's a documentary detailing the life and career and family of Leonard Nimoy, and this was one of the bonuses we received as investors. Now you notice we're not in that picture. We are in this one. That is a picture of Paula and me, Paula to the left and me there in the middle in the center, with two of the famous world-renowned actors from the TV series Star Trek: The Next Generation, Michael Dorn as Commander Worf and Gates McFadden as the ship's medical officer, Dr. Beverly Crusher. Why am I showing you all of this? I have lived Star Trek my entire life. And one of the things that I have learned is that there are a great many principles and life lessons and guidelines for living and for business and for success buried and hidden not too well in the philosophy of Star Trek. Let me give you an example. Today, I'm speaking specifically about an episode from the second season of Star Trek, the original series. The episode's called Return to Tomorrow. It concerns, of course, the crew of the Enterprise coming into contact with fantastically advanced alien life. They are offered the opportunity to have their bodies, Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock, and another member of the crew are requested to loan their physical bodies to the entities, the incorporeal minds of three alien intelligences, so as to help them live and construct materials that they need so that they can live on. All right? Now, as you can imagine, as those of you who know something about the Star Trek series, there is one character in the original series who is one of society's, one of entertainment's original contrarians. His name is Dr. Leonard McCoy, as played by the late great actor DeForest Kelley. Dr. McCoy is exceedingly skeptical about this idea of Kirk and Spock and Dr. Ann Mulhall loaning their bodies to these alien presences. He says, he says in a meeting, in a conference where a number of the crew are discussing this, and Kirk makes it very clear that the decision must be unanimous, since they will all be deeply involved in this activity, in this venture. And McCoy says, I want one question answered to my satisfaction. He says, why? Not a list of possible miracles, because obviously dealing and interacting with species as advanced as this, there's the possibility of scientific and medical advancement and knowledge and learning and this sort of thing. But McCoy says, I don't want to hear a list of possible miracles, just a simple, logical, understandable why that overrides all danger. And let's not kid ourselves, he says, that there's no potential danger in this. And it's at this point that Captain Kirk delivers what I believe is quite possibly one of the greatest speeches on entrepreneurship ever delivered by any human being, real or imaginary. Here's what he says. He says, they used to say, if man were meant to fly, he'd have wings. But he did fly. He discovered he had to. Do you wish, he says to Dr. McCoy, that the first Apollo mission hadn't reached the moon, or that we hadn't gone on to Mars and then to the nearest star? That's like wishing you still up with scalpels and sewed your patients up with catgut like your great-grandfather used to. Captain Kirk says, I'm in command. I could order this, but I'm not, because Dr. McCoy is right in pointing out the enormous danger potential in any contact with life and intelligence as fantastically advanced as this. But I must point out that the possibility, the potential for knowledge and advancement is equally great. I'm going to put a pin right here and ask you to pick up a pen and write this down. Print it out in big letters, stick it up on your wall. You ready? Captain Kirk says, risk is our business. That's what this starship is all about. That's why we're aboard her. And then he puts it to the vote. He says, you may dissent without prejudice. Do I hear a negative vote? The vote is unanimous. They go on to loan their bodies to these alien presences. And of course, they are introduced to new worlds of knowledge, of scientific advancement, of course, intrigue, adventure, and ultimate victory and growth for the human race and for all intelligent life. Why did I go through all that? What's the point? Come on, Henderson. What's the point? Every one of us, regardless of the particular business that we're involved in, regardless of the particular industry or company or product or compensation plan or pay plan or group of people, that organization, whoever that we're, every one of us has taken an enormous risk in choosing to do what we are doing now. In fact, I dare submit to us, that if what we are choosing for our way to earn a living, not just to earn a living, but to create a life, a lifestyle, a legacy, to build a business for ourselves and for those closest to us, if what we are doing does not involve some level of risk, in fact, a significant level of risk, it's probably not worth doing. And so how are we to deal with this fact? Because I know that for many of us, and we've had conversations here and in some of our breakout rooms and other evening sessions and so forth, we have heard many of us express fear, nervousness, that sense of unease at the risk we're taking. Some of us have invested significant amounts of money to do what we've chosen to do. Some of us are devoting enormous blocks of time, taking time out of our lives, taking time away from our families, from our loved ones, from other things that we would rather be doing, that we might prefer to be doing, in order to take on these ventures. I would suggest to all of us that risk, that feeling of uncertainty, that feeling that we've just opened a door and stepped into a dark room, that feeling is exactly where we should be. What? Yes, I'll say that again. That feeling of risk, that feeling of unease, uncertainty, is exactly where we should be if we hope to accomplish those goals that we've set for ourselves. John has been talking with us and sharing with us so eloquently in our Monday evening book studies of late from Think and Grow Rich, talking about fixing in our mind the exact amount of money we intend to acquire. Oh boy, did that not scare the bejeebers out of you the first time you did that? Yeah? Yes? Good. Good. Why? Because where we are right now, where we were when we began this journey in whatever business we've chosen, we began from a place where we were comfortable, where, perhaps we were making enough money from our job. We were doing all right. Some cases not. And in other cases, the reason we chose this is because we wanted more. We're okay where we are, but we want more. We've all come to know that colloquially as our comfort zone. Well, here's another little secret, and I will conclude with this. Here is your comfort zone. You see the circle? I'm not really good at circles with my finger. Here is your comfort zone. Here is where the magic happens. Nothing. Think of any famous person. Think of any person of accomplishment, of success, of fame. You can name examples from your country, wherever you are. I'll name a couple of examples from mine. Henry Ford, Arthur Ashe, Oprah Winfrey, Napoleon Hill, Andrew Carnegie, well, Scotland as well. You name them, Sir Edmund Hillary, Steve Jobs, every one of them, Elon Musk, every one of them took a risk, took an enormous risk, stepped into an area where they were no longer comfortable. And history has written the results of that step. So I would say to us as a guideline for living today, if you are uncomfortable, if you are feeling the nervous buzz of the risk that you have taken in stepping into this e-commerce venture, into this home business venture, Seize that feeling. Rejoice in it. Celebrate it. Step out. Do the thing you're uncomfortable doing. And you'll find, as so many of us had, you know that at one time I actually got on a plane and flew to the other side of the world and went to live there. Had never been there, had barely heard of the place. And I spent 10 years living in the Middle East, and I can tell you it changed my life. It's where I met my wife. It's where I had all kinds of wonderful adventures and learnings and got to know and become friends with people from all over the world. Take the risk. When you feel the buzz, when you feel the fear, good. Celebrate it. Enjoy it. Eleanor Roosevelt, final quote, we gain strength and confidence by each experience in which we really stop to look fear in the face. We must do that which we think we cannot. Let's take this and carry it around with us all day, my friends. Risk is our business. That's what this starship, this mastermind is all about. That's why we're aboard her. And with that, I'm going to open up the floor to questions. Please feel free to pop your hand up in the chat and come say hello. Let me know what you're thinking. Let us begin with Star. Good morning, good afternoon, Star. How are you?
Hey, I'm really good. Thank you very much. And I'm just feeling a bit, I think things are all coming in sync to me at the moment. But I've been obviously reading, I keep mentioning the psychocybernetics.
Yes.
And I've read a part of it that I've screenshotted a couple of things and I've been wanting to bring it up in the group as it's really, and honestly, it's about an adversity quotient. Instead of IQ, it's an AQ.
Adversity.
And how is it just so fitting with exactly what you have just been talking about? And they decided IQ was obviously the focus of academia. And then there was a guy, Dr. Paul Stoltz, who started doing a study about AQ, which is adversity quotient. So when you're in situations of risk, how do you respond? And it's just so the three parameters and how he sort of judged people. He did a study with like 100,000 people. And I bet you that Spock and Kirk would have scored really highly because it's about being nimble and reacting to risk situations, to being in adversity. It says, number one, they do not blame others for the adversities or the setbacks that they confront. They do not blame, number two, they do not blame themselves either. They do not see setbacks that occur as reflecting poorly on themselves. And number three, they believe that the problems they face are limited in size and duration and can be dealt with. And that's exactly what, all the quotes that are coming in the chat. And I do think it's really funny and brilliant and amazing how you teach this through Star Trek, because it's so exactly what my mother used to do when we were kids. It was almost like, what would Kirk do in a situation when we were kids? But it's just so brilliant, no challenge cannot be overcome with the right thoughts and processes and teamwork, basically, isn't it?
Wow.
So I imagine that all of us have got high adversity, AQs, adversity quotient, which I think is probably more important in survival in business and life than your IQ, potentially.
Thank you, Star.
So that was my contribution. Thank you, everybody.
and thank you, Star. And thank you so very much for mentioning your mother's advice and teaching in this context and just automatically making me feel older. didn't know.
Yeah, no, she always said about Star Trek, she'd go, it was amazing. When I was born, people hadn't been to the moon, she used to say. We watched people go to the moon, and before that we watched Star Trek, and it was just mind-blowing. That's what she'd say. And she'd just
Absolutely.
go, you know,
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, it's funny, you mentioned about the adversity quotient and the different criteria. Another quote from Captain James T. Kirk that I literally live by. He said in one of the films, when the situation was at its bleakest, he said, "I don't believe in the no-win scenario."
Yeah, exactly.
I don't believe in the no-win scenario. Everything is possible. Jane and Neil, good evening. Good to see you. Please go forward.
Good evening, Glen. This is a really, hi, Star. This is a really good topic because today, obviously yesterday, or the day before yesterday, we shared with everybody results and things that we'd had. Today we sat down and worked out potentially cash flow and things that, and exactly what you said today. From a point of view, we've put a lot of money into the business ourselves. We're putting considerable amount of time. We added up all of the figures today and worked out that basically we could stop today and we'd have a little bit of money back from Amazon, and that's it. We could wipe the slate clean. If we decide to continue from now on, which is the risky bit of it, which is exactly what you were saying, basically it means that instead of putting in 20, 30 items now into Amazon and getting them sold, we're talking about 200 items at a time of products that we've been selling, managing the PPC campaigns extremely tightly because they will run away with you. And believe you me, that's really frightening. We're staring at either going one way or the other. And there's, from exactly what you've hit the nail on the head today, exactly what you're saying, if we don't go ahead with it, we're not going to get to that goal where we need to be. But that doesn't make it any easier for that decision to be made.
Mm. Wow. From 20 items or so to 200.
Well, we've sold for our range of products so far, we've sold nearly 250 products in 2 months.
Wow. Wow.
But that's, I mean, they all of the people will tell you that the first 3 months are getting your products established. We're only into our 2nd month. So we're not even getting those products properly established yet. And yet we are talking about, if we want to sell there's 2 or 3 products that are particularly selling well, we've got to get them out in the marketplace now, before Christmas, so that they're there for Europe and England, all of the people there to buy it. It's no good, but that means a significant commitment, both in time and money from ourselves.
It's scary. Keep going.
And so you're ready to hit. You're ready to hit the key.
Yeah.
With the brandy.
But you're doing it. You're doing it. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you.
Well, we know that it'll work. It works on a smaller basis. So although the sums are going to be significantly larger, if it works on a smaller, why won't it work on a larger basis? I don't know. We should. And fortunately, we've got a number of products that we tried, and we can sort of cherry pick the ones that are better, obviously, out of those, and drop the ones that aren't performing. But it's not making that decision any easier.
Well, you are textbook examples in feeling the fear and doing it anyway.
Mm.
Yeah.
And your results are telling the story. Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, Jane and Neil. We appreciate it. Adrian, my man, please step forward.
Wonderful, wonderful session, Glen. You're a true and a wonderful orator. It's always great to listen to you. And great subjects as well. I think you should definitely do a session on risk management, because risk is our business, but it's how to manage it, isn't it, really? And
Indeed.
Jane and Neil are a beacon for us all. I think they've led the way, and they're really showing us all how to do it. And you face these moments where there's known risk. So what do you do? I mean, certainly you've always got to calculate the downside. What is the downside if this doesn't work out? And have a really clear view of that. And then secondly, a plan B. What are the possible scenarios that the imaginable usual scenarios that could arise here, and what can I do if they do? But a risk management session would be great, Glenn. That would be useful, I think, for everybody.
Well, hey, let's you and me get together, man. You are the financial genius. Matter of fact, just a very quick question for you, Adrian.
What have I got myself into here?
It seems to me, and you'll comment on this. Seems to me that even in the financial realm, in the world of actual money and investments, risk management is as much a mental and emotional exercise as it is a financial one of numbers. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. There are a lot of what they call soft skills. That's the jargon. So, we have managers all over the world, and the only way that we can afford to take a risk is to know that they are really, really up to the mark, that their system, their due diligence, their internal communications are so good that they're going to do a very good job. Now, there's always risk. We can't cut the risk out, but we can try and control that risk by understanding it and understanding the scenario that they're building their case on. But as you say, we actually send psychologists in as well occasionally, just to talk to people to make sure they haven't lost their way, they haven't lost their philosophy. For example, if someone starts digging a hole, gets into a risky situation, starts digging a hole, it's easy to change strategy to try and dig your way out and then get in a really big mess. So it's partly about psychology, as you say, and whether somebody can stick to their guns when the going gets difficult.
Hold on to your
carry on
nerve.
with a strategy they know works and not to lose faith. Back
Indeed.
to this faith again.
We're definitely
from Napoleon Hill.
We're definitely going to need to talk risk management, my friend. Thank you. Moving right along, we have Mandy, then Wayne, then Ego. Mandy, how are you?
Hi, Glenn. I love Star Trek, and I love Kirk and Spock. They were definitely mine when I was younger.
See, I knew I liked you.
I went to States about 20 years ago, I think, and I bought 2 cards. And one of those cards, I don't know if you can see it. Can you see that?
Yes.
It says risk. And I have carried those with me and put them on my wall everywhere I've worked. And this one says, you cannot discover new oceans unless you have the courage to lose sight of the shore.
Ooh.
And every time I've had a decision to make about whether I was going for a new job or anything, I've always looked at that. And it is so true. And it's like, yeah, you have to just step away from what you've got. And I just wanted to say that because I think, like Adrian said, there's financial risk, there's emotional risk. And I think financial risk can sometimes be harder in a sense that you've got something tangible to lose. But the people that lose out are the ones that won't take the emotional risk and won't go and step off and try something else. And I've seen so many people limit themselves by not doing it. And so, yeah, get something like that, or put your risk as our business up and keep looking at it.
I love it, man.
You.
Physical, visual reminders. I love this idea. I'm in the middle of putting some things up in my office, and I love this one. Risk is our business. Yes.
Yeah.
You cannot discover new oceans unless you have the courage to lose sight of the shore.
Yeah.
Excellent. Wayne, then Ego, then the Llama King. Wayne, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, Glenn. Thank you. Yeah, hey, I love Star Trek and all those things you talk about. We were having a bit of fun with some folks there in the chat. It's good, good fun. I, as a young fella growing up, I used to watch Star Trek in black and white. I had to put the color in myself, in my own mind. I used to, on the way home from school, I used to borrow I don't know if anybody remembers, but Star Trek episodes from the original series were actually written in books. There was 3 or 4 episodes per book. So I used to read the episodes on the school bus on the way home. And then on weekends, I had my little plastic spaceman that I used to sit on the organ, and I would play Star Trek on the organ. So my Enterprise. Yeah, the organ was my Enterprise. So, I think a lot of what you spoke about today, and I don't want to say too much, but it kind of leads in nicely to what I was aiming to talk about tomorrow, which is possibility in our frame of reference, and very much kind of Kirk and that whole crew as they lead sort of into worlds unknown, but anything unknown also represents great possibility. So exploring that a bit tomorrow. So thanks, Glenn. That was awesome today.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that one. I just have this picture in my mind of plastic spacemen on the organ and Star Trek on the black and white. Sounds so familiar. Ego! And then Stuart, and then the laughing Irishman. Ego!
Hello. Hi, guys. Glenn, I really love that. It's just every time I hear you speak, I'm just so blown away at the gift, I would call it. So yeah, thanks for that. Talking about risk, something that Adrian said around risk management. So coming back to the risk management process, of course, there's a financial side, and then there's the soft side. So in a past life, I managed mergers and acquisitions for my company. And although there is the financial due diligence, there's your maybe people related matters and like technology integration, there's that soft side of the risk management that's really evident in the process itself. And I think based on what Neil had said earlier, it fits in nicely. So in anything that we do, business or otherwise, we have to identify the potential risk. It could even be going for surgery. It could even be buying a house, whatever it is, right? You identify the potential risk and then you analyze the risk. So something that Neil said, which kind of fits nicely there, is, do I pick some products that are doing well? Do I scale from 20 to 200? Then you're after you've analyzed, then you're evaluating. Then once you get to a point where that hard decision has been made, how are you dealing with that risk? How are you treating the risk? And whilst you have a good understanding of what that risk is and you're dealing with it, you don't take your eye off that to say, oh, I've made this decision and I'm going with it. So still sticking with with you, Neil, I think the next phase would then be, how are you monitoring and reviewing? So you have that 3-month window where the product needs to stabilize, but you keep an eye on it because there could be market trends that cause things to shift. It might shift upwards or downwards, but that the soft skill, I think, actually really helps that process of managing the risk, either in life or in business.
Keeping a cool head above all
Yep.
else. And yeah, knowing your numbers, knowing the details of what you're considering, what you're going to do, managing the risk, which if I'm right, can kind of help us to be more calm and feel more comfortable in taking the risk. Yes?
Absolutely.
Excellent. This is good advice, Ego. Thank you. What, between Adrian and Ego, risk management, I'm telling you, wow, I want to sit in on that seminar. Ladies and gentlemen, the Llama King, Stuart Wilde. How do you do, sir?
How's everybody doing? Oh my God, Glenn, what a Vulcan amazing session today. Couple things, man. Big Trekkie from back in the day, and you and I and John and maybe some other folks on call grew up in the same metropolitan area, let's say. And I remember every night at 11 p.m. on Channel 11 WPIX New York, right? Maybe before or maybe it was after the Honeymooners or whatever it was.
It was always after the Honeymooners. Yes.
Every single night, and then Twilight Zone. I think, when you start talking about risk taking, right, this is sort of the definition of an entrepreneur. And we start talking about fixed versus growth mindsets, right? And so if you're averse to taking risks, then you're stuck in this fixed mindset. And once you start taking risks, then you realize that you have control over your destiny. You can make decisions. Couple, like, so many things about Star Trek, and I want to save some goodies to share with Wayne tomorrow too. So I got a couple things I want to share with you. You mentioned the no-win scenario, and as a guide, as an outfitter, I too do not believe in the no-win scenario, or as Trekkies would call it, the Kobayashi Maru
test
scenario, right?
Kobayashi Maru.
And
we'll explain that for those of you that are new to the Star Trek universe. We'll explain that later.
And if I recall, the reason why Captain Kirk was the only one to have ever passed the Kobayashi Maru scenario is because he reprogrammed the scenario, because he cheated the way it was. He cheated. He
changed the condition of the test.
He changed the rules, right? And
on a commendation for original thinking. It's
true. It's true. And last night on our Adventures in Mindset session, we were talking about some challenges that I had on a trip, and I feel like that's a way I try to live my life professionally. I don't believe in the no-win scenario. I believe in the win-win scenario, right? And I think that that's possible. I always think about Lieutenant Colonel Mark Riggle, and maybe, in a military context, there's another version of that. But from the civilian context, I have no problem standing in this place, let's say. Couple things about Star Trek Prime Directive, right? Don't interfere. Don't interfere in somebody else's growth, right? And I think that's an interesting concept. And then really, I think the theme of all Star Trek is free will versus determinism. And and even the episode that you're talking about, where the crew has to essentially give up their free will in order to be enlightened by these entities, let's say. So I think and then in later episodes, you talk about the Borg and individualism versus collectivism and things like that, and I think it's pretty amazing. You mentioned uncertainty, and that brings up a lot of things to me, right? And when I think about uncertainty, and I know that's sort of the nature of decision, right? Uncertainty and indecision go together, but really the nature of the universe is that everything is in an uncertain state, right? And that can be a really scary, intimidating prospect for people. And yet, if you look at it in a different way, it can also be the most empowering, liberating concept as well, because uncertainty really means that there is unlimited potential in your world, right? And then that can encourage us to make a decision and take action on that decision, right? So I think uncertainty has a power, has a potential in it, right? And I think that's what you're getting at there. And then I'll sign off, but I think Bill is coming up after me, and I just want to hear Bill say dilithium crystals.
This should be entertaining. Thank you, Stuart. We got Bill, then Pam, and we may be wrapping up with Mark, but at the moment, the floor belongs to the Laughing Irishman. Bill.
Thanks, brother. Live long and prosper. Dilithium crystals, Stuart. It's right up there with supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
My head hurts now.
Julie Andrews can say that backwards, by the way. Risk, brilliant. Listen, Star Trek, huge fan, right from day one. Yes, as Wayne said, black and white telly, which brought back a memory of a snooker commentator explaining the position of the balls on the table, and he said, for those of you watching in black and white, the pink is behind the blue. Anyway,
you ain't got no sense, right, Bill?
No.
Please go forward.
I have risked everything for what I'm doing and for what I want to do. I have poured in what some people might look as silly amounts of money to do this. I'm on a pension. I had some money saved up, but there's not as much there as there was before. But you don't get anywhere by not chancing your arm, as they would say here. You've got to put the money where you think it's going to do you best, and you've got to learn, and you've got to grow with that learning. And the more you learn, the more you realize, okay, I might have made a mistake here or there, but now I know not to do that. Now I can see when somebody's trying to bluff me in the business side of things. And you mentioned earlier, I mean, it is, as Ego said, it's all about prior planning. You can't go into a risk situation without a prior plan. Captain Kirk, on most occasions, had a plan. He knew what he was up to, maybe only himself, and kept it to himself. But that's what we've got to go for. And you mentioned military parlance, and I'm sure everybody here has heard of the Special Air Service, a very tough regiment, very brave regiment of soldiers from the British Army. Their motto is "He who dares wins," and I think I shall leave you with that.
He who dares wins. Boy, living with risk, living with uncertainty, man. That's got to be the sort of thing to get you up in the mornings, eh, Bill?
Yep, it does, brother. It does.
Absolutely. Hey, special hello. It's got to be Pam, and then the Lieutenant Colonel. But first, my good friend Pam. Is this the first time you are speaking, Pam? Let me unmute you since you're driving. Pam, go for it. Wait, let's see. Pam, let me unmute you. There you go.
Here I are. Yes, indeed, Glenn, it is my first time actually participating as opposed to being the typical lurker. And everybody, I apologize. My AQ is not very high. I have always, since I was very young, taken what would be more considered the safer route. And I've realized, first of all, Glenn, you know I trust you implicitly. You and I have had many conversations. And I've called Glenn my personal E.F. Hutton. When he speaks, I listen. And maybe that's just an American thing, but at any rate, I grew up watching Star Trek with my dad, but honestly, it scared the bejeebus out of me with those aliens and stuff as a young girl with a very vivid imagination. But anyway, when I was also very young, I grew up and I wanted to be two things. I wanted to be a mom. I've achieved that. But I wanted to be an artist. I used to love to draw and sketch and what have you. And my family, with their best of intentions, no, you don't want to do that. They don't make much money. So fast forward several years, I'm a junior in high school, maybe senior. It came down to picking a major to go to college. And my reasoning, I was choosing between art and Spanish. And my biggest deciding factor between the two were my grades. In art class, I had A's and B's. In Spanish, I had all A's. So I took what I thought would be the safer route, and I don't regret it. I love the language. But I've noticed that same theme throughout most of my 50-plus years of life. I would have dreams at nighttime, and I would dream that I was like driving kind of like Thelma Louise, and all of a sudden I'd hit this cliff and I'd be airborne, and boom, that would be the end of it. Well, there was something rolling around in my mind that was troubling me. I knew about it, finally took the action, took the trust in it, and the that nightmare went away. Now, just two other things I want to add, because I don't want to take up a whole lot of you guys' time. Three, actually. Glenn, I have always admired when we were at that event last October, how you could just walk up to anybody and introduce yourself. And you were like the chairman of the board, and I'd be like, what? I can't do that. Why? I don't know. It does matter, but I'll figure that out along the way. Eleanor Roosevelt is one of my heroes, if you will. She's had so many amazing quotes that I keep in mind, that I'll look up. And like the one is, do what you please, for you will be criticized either way. Something like that. And then the last thing I wanted to add along those lines was that I'm also a huge, huge Garth Brooks fan. You thought I was going to say Beatles, didn't you, Glenn? You thought I was going to say the Beatles, didn't you?
Who, me? Who, me?
Yes, you. Because you know me. The rest of the people don't really know me yet. So anyway, having said that, when I was at a job like a lifetime ago, I would take lyrics from songs that I found inspirational, and I would type them up and hang them up at my cubby wall, right in my eye view. And one of my very favorites was from the Garth Brooks song, The River. And the line is that, so don't you sit upon the shoreline and say you're satisfied. Choose to chance the rapids and dare to dance the tide. And that, in a nutshell, sums up pretty much what you had said, that Captain repeated, or sorry, what Captain Kirk had said. And I'm sorry, I think it was Star and what her mother had told her. You know, it's about the taking the risk, and I've always been afraid of that. So I just wanted to point out that my first time speaking with all of you is stepping out of my comfort zone, because I'm usually that lurker in the corner. And that's all I wanted to really address with all of you. So thank you.
Pam, you are getting a boatload of love in the chat, and I don't know if you can see the different screens. You're getting applause. You're getting the love. By the way, one of the first things you said that I didn't want to let pass. You mentioned your adversity quotient. You mentioned your hesitation to take your adversity quotient and wanting to build that, wanting to increase that. Well, guess what? It's why you're here. Welcome to the family. Welcome.
Thank you.
And unless you got it, and unless someone has a thought burning a hole in the pocket of their mind, well, there you are. It's going to be Mark and then Toba, Lieutenant Colonel. Good morning, sir.
Glenn, thank you very much. This is what a great topic. And I was one of those young Trekkie guys. I think I started watching when I was about 11 or so. Yeah, and I remember one particular episode, and I did a little research on this because I found it kind of a unique episode. I mean, many years later, but and the reason I remember is because when that episode happened, my mom happened to be in the room while I was watching it. The Green Girl, remember the Green Girl, Susan Oliver, you know, and the whole dance, remember? And when you're when you're 11 or 12 years old, it's like mom's going like, what are you watching? You know, yeah. So, but what I remember, and the older I got, the more I realized just the relevance of Star Trek. I mean, you had Chekhov and Sulu and Aurora, and, you know, and Nurse Chapel. All these people are officers, you know, on the starship. They're all leaders, and they all have different backgrounds. The Star Trek, you know, Gene Roddenberry had done all this work to bring in so many diverse backgrounds, you know, in a very unique environment, and all these people working together, and they were all accomplishing missions and making things happen, you know, and it was the whole, you know, win at the end of the night sort of thing every episode, and taking on unsurmountable odds, it seemed like. And I thought, you know, in the time that we were going through the 60s and what was happening around the world in Vietnam, although that I was too young for that, I look back on that now with where I've been, and I thought, wow, what a place and time to put a program like that to help bring people together, you know, from disparate places, and get them all aligned, so to speak. Look at us here. We come from all these different backgrounds all over the world, you know, grew up in many different ways, but we all seem to have this common bond in this environment that John's put together. I mean, just everything about it. I think this is sort of, you know, the fruition moment of something like what Star Trek has done, you know, for us. And the one point I'll make on Susan Oliver, maybe, you know, to transcend being an actress and working in that environment and bringing the, you know, something that is pretend, so to speak, to light. Do you know that Susan Oliver actually holds 5 world records for, flying a light plane over, from the U.S. over to Europe, and she was the first woman ever to fly a Learjet. And so, I mean, and you think about the things that were accomplished, so it transcends to those people it was given them opportunity, and they stood up and they had great strength and great belief in themselves. And look at the kind of things that people were able to accomplish as a matter of just the show that they watched. So I've always been a Trekkie. I can't say I'm a Trekkie. I don't go to all the the shows and stuff, but I do watch Star Trek. I've watched all the movies, and I just love the stories that they bring, and the characters that that are there for us. So
thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Listen, Stogies and Star Trek to come. For sure. Hey, listen, we are approaching the top of the hour. This has been such a phenomenal chat and interaction. Let's keep right on moving and be aware that we're about to wrap it up. Toba and then Joe. Toba, how are you, sir?
I'm fine, Glenn. Thank you very much for another interesting topic today. Yeah, just a quick one from me, and that will be based on a story I heard some time ago about an eccentric billionaire that invited his friends and cronies down to his country home. In the middle of the party, then he calls all the invitees around the swimming pool. And this swimming pool is invested with crocodiles and alligators. And in the middle of that, he declared, can anyone that can swim across this swimming pool will inherit 50% of all my properties. So before he finished his statement, there was someone inside the river, that was inside the swimming pool, that was actually swimming, dodging all the crocodiles and alligator. And before you know it, this guy was at the other side of the swimming pool. The billionaire was surprised. He said, wow, why did you do that? And the guy said, please, sir, who pushed me into the river? Who pushed me into this swimming pool? So this is an extreme case, to be honest, but this actually shows that there are so many things that we are capable of that we give ourselves credit for. So of course, I don't encourage anyone to jump into an alligator river, or to a swimming pool infested with alligator. But the fact is that there are so many things that we can do that we never know that we can do it if we actually pressure to do that. So that is the first thing I want to talk about. The second one I want to talk about is, some time ago, I invested in shares. I saw people buying shares, and I just jumped into it. I didn't know the rule. I didn't know how that works. And I bought those shares. And what really happened was that that was a very wrong time for me to actually buy those shares. I lost all the money, and I learned my lesson. I actually ran away. And after some time, I came back into it. I knew what I've done wrong. The first thing I did was to go and learn the role. I read about it. I attended the workshop to know how the market works and what I need to do. And that really helped me to be able to get back in the game. So what I want to say with that is that we can take risk, but we need to take a calculated risk where we learn the risk, we know what it takes, and we know how to work around it. That's all I've got to share.
Nice, nice. Know what you're doing. Plan, do, review. Love it, Toba. We're right at the top of the hour. A few seconds. Let us wrap it up with Joe. Joe, good evening.
I'll be very quick. Good evening, everyone. Just to give you a bit of background of what I'm going to say, I was brought up by two very different parents. My dad was a really solid, down the normal path kind of guy. My mother was an absolute rebel. If you told her she couldn't do something, she would go out and do it. And I spent most of my early years emulating that. But one thing she did tell me, and I've always remembered it, and she said to me, if ever there is anything you're scared of, you just face it down and do it. There is no such thing as fear. Fear is only in your own mind, and she used to say to me, every day, try and do one small thing that scares you. And in the end, you won't be afraid of anything. And I've lived by that. So you can legislate and you can make all the plans, but planning doesn't always always help you. Sometimes you just have to take it on faith and stare it all down. And that's all I've got to say. So have a lovely evening, everyone.
All you've got to say, holy moly, was that a mouthful. Face it down and do it.
Do it.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much. We have reached the top of the hour. Thank you so much for your patience and my getting myself fired right in the first minute of the session, and for participating and spending this time with us, Reverend. I'm sorry. Watch my subject, Captain Lavenia.
Can I be a Commodore? That's a different movie.
Commodore Lavenia.
Oh, Commodore. Okay. Very good. I was thinking of was it Jack Sparrow and yeah, Curse of the Black Pearl or something. Anyway, thank you, Glenn, and thank you everyone for your participation, and thank you as well for our new members who just spoke for the first time, which is fantastic. So we are going to have a big day today. It is Wednesday, is our busiest day of the week in terms of our schedule. We do have 6 p.m. with Ego and Adrian for Life and Business Tools. In fact, I'm not sure what the topic is. I know they did a 3-part series on business planning, which of course you can catch the replays as well as a downloadable asset inside your members' site. And then of course, we're going to wrap up tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern U.S. time, Networking Magic with Captain Henderson of the USS something, the Farragut, the I don't know, name some starships, right?
Enterprise.
Oh, the Enterprise. Okay, so you're doing the Enterprise thing. I thought that was Kirk. Okay, so we'll wrap up there. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you later on today. Bye for now.
Live long and
Bye,
prosper.
everyone.